They often tell you that life's biggest turning points arrive with fanfare, a massive event, a tragedy, or a triumph. But in my experience, the moments that actually reshape your soul happen when you're looking the other way. I never guessed that a solitary, rainy Tuesday would evolve into one of the most raw and revealing nights of my existence. My husband's 3 oldest friends, men I'd exchanged polite pleasantries with for a decade, stumbled into my sanctuary, intoxicated, loud, and entirely unscripted. What transpired in those hours shifted my perspective on my marriage, my own identity, and the fragile beauty of human connection. Before we dive in, please take a second to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Also, let me know in the comments where in the world you're listening from. Reading your stories means the world to us. Now, let's begin. It began as the definition of a quiet night. Mark had gone to a reunion dinner with his old college crew, celebrating a milestone I couldn't quite remember. I had chosen to stay behind, relishing the rare solitude. I made a pot of herbal tea and curled up in the living room armchair with my sketchbook. The house was still, save for the rhythmic drumming of rain against the window pane, a cozy, invisible barrier between me and the world. I had just lost myself in the shading of a charcoal drawing when the front door rattled violently. At first, I assumed it was the wind, or perhaps Mark forgetting his keys. But then the door swung inward, crashing against the wall, and 3 figures spilled into the hallway, bringing a gust of cold, wet air and raucous laughter with them. It was Leo, David, and Sam. Elena. Leo, the boisterous one, bellowed, bracing himself against the doorframe to keep from toppling over. They tumbled into the living room like a clumsy comedy act. My initial reaction was a spike of adrenaline, followed quickly by a wave of nervous confusion. "Boys," I said, standing up and clutching my sketchbook to my chest. I wasn't expecting the after-party to be here. Leo waved a hand dismissively, nearly knocking over a lamp. "We didn't mean to crash the gate. Elmark got a ride with the others. We walked." They were soaked, disheveled, and clearly inebriated. David and Sam were leaning on each other for support, their eyes glassy and swimming. I watched them closely. These were decent men, Mark's brothers in everything but blood, yet the energy in the room had shifted from peaceful to chaotic in a heartbeat. "I was just sketching," I said, my voice steady but guarded. Sam, usually the silent observer of the group, broke away from David and slumped onto the ottoman. He looked at me with an intensity that unsettled me. "Sketching," he mumbled. "Always making things perfect, Elena. Always so unshakable." I forced a polite smile. "Just passing the time, Sam." "No," he pressed, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees. "It's fascinating. You're always the calm in the storm. Does the mask ever get heavy? Do you ever just let go?" The question hung in the air, stripping away the polite veneer of the evening. It wasn't said with malice, but with a desperate kind of curiosity. I froze. I looked at them, really looked at them. They weren't just Mark's drinking buddies anymore. They were 3 grown men, worn down by life, looking for a place to land. I don't know what you mean," I stammered, though I knew exactly what he meant. Leo let out a dry, humorless chuckle and slid down to sit on the floor rug. "Look, Elena, we're drunk. We know it. But the alcohol, it just makes it harder to lie. We've all been carrying things. Maybe we just wanted to see if you were real, too." I slowly sat back down, realizing they weren't here to cause trouble. They were here because they were overflowing with things they couldn't say when they were sober. The night unspoled slowly. It didn't turn into a rowdy party. Instead, it became a vigil of honesty. Leo spoke first, his booming voice reduced to a whisper as he talked about his business failing and the crushing weight of feeling like a disappointment. David, the one who always cracked jokes, spoke about the silence in his apartment after his divorce, a loneliness so physical it hurt his chest. And Sam. Sam spoke about the terror of time passing, of leaving no legacy behind, of being forgotten. The room grew heavy, not with awkwardness, but with a sacred kind of weight. In the soft amber light of the floor lamp, I saw their wrinkles, their graying stubble, the trembling of their hands. And in the face of their naked vulnerability, my own defenses crumbled. I found myself speaking words I hadn't even told Mark. I talked about my anxiety, the fear that I wasn't talented enough to call myself an artist, and the quiet isolation I sometimes felt even when the house was full. By 3 a.m., the tension had evaporated, replaced by a warmth that had nothing to do with the heating system. These weren't strangers or acquaintances anymore. They were fellow travelers. We had bypassed years of small talk in a single evening. Eventually, the adrenaline faded. The men drifted off, Leo on the rug, David in the recliner, Sam curled up on the sofa. The room smelled of rain, damp wool, and the faint scent of old whiskey. I looked at them one last time before heading upstairs, realizing that this chaotic intrusion had been a gift. It was a lesson in humanity. When the sun broke through the gray clouds the next morning, the scene in the living room was almost comical. 3 grown men groaned in unison as the light hit their eyes. Leo's hair was a bird's nest. David was missing a shoe. I walked in with a tray of coffee and toast, feeling a tender amusement. "Room service," I whispered. Leo squinted at me, rubbing his face. "Elena, please tell me we didn't destroy the house." "The house is fine," I laughed softly, "though I can't speak for your dignity." David sat up, wincing. "I think my head is legally distinct from my body right now." I handed him a mug. He took it with both hands, looking up at me with a sheepish, yet grateful expression. The bravado was gone. "Elena," Sam said, his voice raspy. "About last night, we talked a lot. Maybe too much. I hope we didn't overstep." I paused, holding the coffee pot. "You didn't. I think we all needed it." It felt real. For the first time in a long time, we weren't just pretending everything was fine. The 3 of them exchanged glances. The air in the room softened. "We saw you, Elena," Leo said quietly. "Not just Mark's wife. But you. And thanks for letting us be us." "I saw myself too," I admitted. "Seeing you all let your guard down helped me put mine down." We spent the rest of the morning in a comfortable, hungover haze, sipping coffee and picking at toast. There was no need to fill the silence with chatter. A bond had been forged in the darkness of the previous night, a silent pact of understanding. I realized that intimacy isn't always romance. Sometimes, it's just witnessing someone else's truth without judging it. By the time Mark got home that afternoon, the guys had shuffled out and the house was tidy again. But the atmosphere had changed. Mark kissed me hello, sensing something different in my demeanor, but unable to place it. I felt lighter, more grounded. I didn't tell Mark every detail. The specifics of their confessions belonged to them, just as mine belonged to me. Some things are sacred to the moment they occur in. A few evenings later, I was sitting on the back patio, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of violet and gold. I heard the gate latch click. It was Leo. He didn't have his usual swagger. He walked up the path holding a small, rectangular box. "Elena," he said, stopping at the foot of the stairs. "I didn't want to intrude. I just wanted to drop this off. A peace offering. And a thank you." I took the box. "You didn't have to, Leo." "I did," he replied earnestly. "That night, it shifted something for me. For all of us." Inside the box was a beautiful, vintage fountain pen. It was a tool for expression, a nod to my art, and a symbol of the stories we choose to tell. "Thank you," I said, feeling a lump in my throat. "It's perfect." He gave a small, genuine smile, turned, and walked away. No jokes, no noise. Just a quiet moment of connection. The ripple effect continued. A week later, David stopped by. He sat at my kitchen table, nursing a tea, and we really talked, about his plans to start over, about hope. And then Sam came by, ostensibly to return a borrowed umbrella, but he lingered to discuss legacy and the importance of memory. I realized then that the disaster of that drunken night had actually been a catalyst. It opened a door that none of us knew was locked. Life returned to normal on the surface. Mark went to work. I continued my sketching. But the colors of my world seemed more vibrant. I found myself looking at Mark, at my neighbors, at strangers, wondering what stories they carried beneath the surface. I realized that we spend so much energy building walls to protect ourselves, to appear perfect and composed. But it's when the walls come down, whether by accident or by choice, that the light gets in. That night, my husband's friends crashed into my quiet life and brought chaos. But within that chaos, they brought a mirror. They taught me that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a bridge. They taught me that if you listen closely enough, even the most unexpected moments can whisper the deepest truths. And as I sit here now, sketching with the pen Leo gave me, I am grateful. Grateful for the mess, for the honesty, and for the beautiful, unpredictable human experience. Thank you for listening to this story. If it touched something in you, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps us bring more stories like this to life. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.